Hi all, let's have a look at another amazing game from the Altibox Norway tournament. So this is in round 8, Magnus Carlsen playing against Sergey Karjakin. So of course they were fighting for the World Chess Championship last time. Let's see this game. D4 from Magnus, knight f6, c4, e6, and we actually do get a Nimzo-Indian. None of this Queen's Indian stuff with knight f3. We get a proper Nimzo-Indian. And a Rubinstein variation, E3, Akiba Rubinstein, great player. So let's see. Make sure you see Rubinstein's immortal game on the channel, by the way. Black castles. We're well in theory, of course. Bishop d3, d5. Now, usually here, knight f3 is played. I'll give you an example. There's over 4,000 games. Simply treading here with knight f3, black plays c5. We get this kind of thing. And there's loads of games even from this position. It's thought to be about equal here. You might wonder about c3. This is actually taken with, there's still 69 games even from this position. It's thought to be about equal. But in this game we see the rarer c takes d5, about 600 games with this. E takes, knight g e2, rook e8, bishop d2, bishop drops back, white castles. b6, rook c1, c5. Sometimes this d5 might be vulnerable. It's more pressure's been put on it here with knight f4, and that might actually even be the first sign of a tactic if black was asleep here at the wheel. If a5, I think there's a tactic on here in regard to d5 or not. I thought there might have been, but no, not yet apparently. Maybe a different move in this position if we can manage it. If I can just show a different move. It's not happening. No, that just okay. It's not happening. If it was white's move here, there might be something going on. But anyway, it's supported. It's theoretical anyway. Bishop b7, queen f3, and now knight a6. We have rook fd1, and there does seem to be a hint of white playing d takes c5, or bishop takes first, d takes c5 to leave this vulnerable. And black actually secures that vulnerability by playing c takes d4, fixing the center. Now in doing so, this reminds me of an Jacobian lecture in the French defense, where sometimes black is wise to just make the center stable. Sometimes it's called releasing the tension and is labelled often as a mistake to release the tension in the centre. So why would black do this tension release? Well, as mentioned, d5 is starting to be, unstable behind the scenes. So it creates stability, but white can start manoeuvring potentially more easily for a kingside attack without being annoyed by central counter-attack. We see knight c2, bishop c2, which... okay, it supports a crude battery, but also it supports bishop a4 sometimes. Bishop d6, bishop e3, knight e4, and now bishop a4 is used. It's an annoyance move. Bishop b3, back to targeting d5. Queen d7, h3, which means actually sometimes, taking here without any backfire of bishop takes h2 check. So it's getting the pawn out of the way for the bishop h2 check. So now actually, this is actually hanging now. Yes, that's actually hanging. Knight takes c3 is played, and I can demonstrate something here, I believe, in relation to d5. As a token move, knight c takes d5. Yeah, we can take this. Black has bishop h2, but this position actually is favourable for white with that dark square bishop interrupting now, and it's slightly better for white. So again, a kind of release of that kind of tension, that issue related to d5. It's shored up. And we have here bishop c6. Now in this position, it's slightly different, I believe. There's resources like bishop a3. Let's have a quick look at this position. Why d5 isn't hanging. No, it's more obvious actually. It's to do with bishop h2. Yeah, sorry. It's very hot here in the UK, It's record temperatures, so please excuse this commentary style. Yeah, knight takes is just losing a piece because, or the queen, if we follow this through with the check here. So basically, yeah, it's totally impossible to take on d5. Whilst in this position, yeah, it wasn't about the queen landing on d5 there. Yeah, okay. So black secured d5 here tactically. Bishop c6, knight h5. Now there is a key threat in this position of bishop h6 because of the placement of the queen and king. So bishop h6, you know, taking knight f6 check. So black has to address the h6 issue. We have bishop c2, threatening bishop f5 with a nice skewer. Good for summer barbecue skewers. Okay, bishop a4. And that's a nice defensive move from Sergey. c4. That's taken. The knight's holding the rook, so it can be taken. d5. Rook g6. Bishop d4 centralizing and threatening bishop takes g7 here for knight f6. That little tactical theme echoed again. Bishop takes, rook takes, queen a4. The queen's going away, it seems, from the king side. You might intuitively think this is a bit too far. And the engine agrees here. Queen takes a2. The computers agree that taking here is a little bit greedy. Maybe knight e8, apparently. And then bishop f8, so defending g7 with priority. And being content with just that pawn. Black seems to be better here. And secure, the king side secure. In the game, taking here... Yes, is this too far? Well, we have now an interesting sacrifice of 2 pieces for a rook. But, so it has to be taken really, otherwise it's going to come back with a vengeance. It's taken. So we don't usually want to give up two minor pieces for a rook. Why is this a special case? Well, the queen's away from the king. It's miles away. Thousands, millions miles away in chess terms. There's fragmented pawns here. The rooks can actually swing, take a swing for it. The pawn here is loose at the moment. We have check, and the idea is not taking here, but rather nifty, very nifty point now. Queen h4. If white just takes here with say the queen, this ending here is just 2 connected passed pawns, ready to roll. In fact, white can only be a nuisance on the king side for so long, and then the pawns are ready to roll. Hopeless. Now, if rook takes instead, if we really want to take this pawn, for those interested, queen b2, and the queen gets on that critical diagonal, and a move like this, king here, there's nothing, it seems, for black to worry about. If we play a check, king h8, there's nothing for black to worry about. Black may be even coming back to e5 and pushing through his pawns on the queen side. So we see here this curious move, queen h4, and it seems as though, yeah, both queen f6 and queen h6 are something for really black to worry about here. Now, if black routinely just carries on, he did treat this seriously with queen b2. So the queen's got access on this diagonal. If he just carries on routinely, let's have a look. Say b5. The position actually might just be equal here, in a theoretical sense. Yeah, if the king just goes there, then I'm not really sure that this check is doing too much. This should be about equal. There's at least perpetual check anyway for white if he wants. Yeah. So this is to be avoided. The king can't go to the other. King can't stay on the king side. It'll just get slaughtered, right? King g8, or just lose the bishop straight away. Losing the bishop, you know, that's important to protect the bishop. Actually, it's not just about slaughter time with any rook d4. Although rook d4, it looks dangerous as well. But no, just take the bishop. So okay, queen b2 is played. And we have rook takes c4. And now, actually, the check here is more deadly because king e7 might be answerable with rook e4 check. Just to show differences here, why king e7 is not sufficient. Let's try a5 check, king e7. Pardon me, it's not about rook e4 check. It's good to computer check these things. In this position, white is winning. Actually, can you make this a test for you? White's play. It's not something that easy to see. Well, maybe it is actually. It's a pretty key forcing move. Rook takes c7. d6 check. And it seems black's just getting slaughtered here. Check. Queen c6 threatening rook d8 and rook a8. We get this sort of position where black's getting mauled basically. So yeah, it's important in this position to be aware that this is starting to be dangerous. The check, the takes, and the d6. So black plays knight e8, fortifying those issues. Rook e1, queen f6. Magnus takes here. Now, if he has two extra moves, he'll play rook g4, rook g8, because the rook is cutting the king from escape. So there's a mating net, not a waiting net, a mating net being woven. Rook g4, rook g8. If queen g7, well, that is played. Queen c2, and the rook gets in place over there for queen h7, rook g8. So Magnus is actually configuring the position for this. He holds f2 like this, and now you might find this really surprising. But it is also, this is weird. You might find it very surprising, and it's also the top engine move in this position. I wonder if you can guess it, if I give you 5 seconds. I don't think anyone will be able to guess it, basically. If you do, please put it in the comments that you found this. I'll give you 5 seconds to pause the video and analyse this position. What would you play here? Okay, g3, as if the king wants g2 because it will be safer sometimes for back row issues. You know, the queen is pointing at the back rows and stuff. We've got things like this. So maybe the king's safer sometimes, but it also, of course, supports rook h4 as well. But isn't it a small issue of losing the h3 pawn? This wasn't taken, funny enough. Queen f5 threatens rook g8, winning the queen. If queen h6, this starts to be quite nice for white. In fact, it starts to be a winning position, even if g3's won there with that pin. This position here, black is actually in big trouble because he's losing that knight there. And I think it's the pawn that will win here, this one versus those two. That pawn is actually, the king can actually come up here. And white's potentially winning this. It's tricky, you've got to factor in these two connected pawns. But yeah, white ends up winning that scenario. So that's all very tactical. But okay, you might think, okay, is there a big, really, is that a huge advantage to support rook h4? Let's have a look. Knight f6, rook h4 is played. So this is a magnificent idea, just to give rook h4, really. Who would have thought? It's potentially sacking two pawns. Okay, so knight f6, rook h4. And the king uses g2 now, as well. Because if you look, there's a subtle threat of, or not so subtle, of queen takes g3. So the king's quite good on g2. So what's happened really is the rook now has access to quite a lot of squares with these pawns like this. Queen g5, queen c3, threatening rook e5. You might think, well, you know, so what? Rook e5. We can test it. Let's say a5 is a token move. now actually check, or queen f3. This is starting to be scary for black. There are certain things going on like rook f5 in this position. And so if we just carried on blindly with this, say this, yeah, trebling can occur. And then there we have d6. And for this position, we can take there. So all that sort of stuff maybe is on the horizon here. So bishop d6 was played, which is technically a mistake. It's just too complicated, this position. What is going on? Black never, it seems, free to use his potentially winning pass pawn. There's just not enough time here. So yeah, bishop d6. It's a complicated position. Check. Knight g8. If king g7, we just take the rook. So yeah, knight g8 is now. Sorry. Now this looks like a annoyance. This pin. Rook e4 is even more of an annoyance if the rook's coming to win g8. Queen g7, and now at move 44, Magnus played a move and Sergey resigned. Can you see what move he played here? If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video. White play in this position. Okay, he played actually rook takes g8. Now one point of this, so the game ended here. One point is if king takes, then we can just pin that queen. And this scenario is winning for white, actually. You might think black has a lot of material, but d7 now for d8. And we get this scenario, white just in time can win this scenario as well. So that would be a winning scenario for white. And on queen takes, we have queen f6. That's the kind of weakness of the last move, right? Queen f6. And here, rook g4. This gets very unpleasant with d6. Now threatening queen e7. And this is a fairly hopeless position. This position here. I'll give you an example. Well, a5 queen e7 is checkmate, right? So what does black do? Say black plays rook e8. We have d7, which echoes, doesn't it, one of Magnus's losses recently to Kramnik. This d pawn, like, you know, well, it was a d pawn, which sometimes is dangerous. Black's helpless against that d pawn here, right? But he has to defend e7. What does he do? Take this? This is hopeless. It's going to end up losing the rook. Or, yeah, we can just take the rook if nothing else. So yeah, this is how it ended. Rook takes g8. In all the scenarios, it seems black is busted here. So Magnus recouped he regained some rating points, about 4. But he did, because of his couple of losses, each of those were like -5 on the real-time rating list at 2700 chess.com. I actually answered the Cora question. I'll put that in maybe the description of the video about is Magnus going to lose the #1 spot. I basically argued, so what if he does on the rating list? He's still world champion. He'll be difficult to topple in any world championship. And okay, if he has another tournament like this, yeah, he might lose the #1 rating spot. Nevertheless, you know, he's still world champion. So, and actually, you know, his intuition is fantastic. He convincingly won the Blitz part of the tournament. So I believe he can bounce back and he can start winning games in future tournaments. So even though at the moment we're at the lowest gap between himself and the chasers on the 2700 rating, you know, that real-time rating site, I think that gap is more likely to be widened on the next few tournaments, because I think this could be a good motivation to pull the socks up, so to speak. Okay, comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks so much.